So here in Lorain County, we have two soil regions. Up here in this northern third, we have what's called the lake plain, pretty level, a lot of sand ridges, and sandstone or shale bedrock. Now, if you've lived here more than 5 minutes, especially in this northern third, you'll notice every other street has ridge in its name. Name some roads for me. Chestnut Ridge, Butternut Ridge, Sandy Ridge, West Ridge, North Ridge. There's a lot of ridge roads. And that's why, because historically these were ridges from the receding lake, the retreating glaciers. The rest of the county is called till plain, and it's just this unsorted mess with a lot of clay, and you'll hear me fuss about that in a few minutes. Couple easy ways you can tell what kind of soils you have is the touch test. Pull your sod or your turf grass back and get a sample of your soil and feel it. Is it dry and crumbly? Does it run through your hands? Or can you make a ribbon with it? Another easy way to tell is the shake test. Again, take your little soil sample, put it in a jar, fill it with water, and shake the devil out of it, like my grandma used to say. And then let it sit for a little bit. And your particles will start to separate. Now you can kind of see it's a little dark, but here we have the sand layer, little thin silt layer, and then clay. And clay is such a fine, small particle that it tends to remain suspended in water for a good period of time. So yeah, it's typically 1 minute, 1 hour, 1 day.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
That image there, what time is that after shaking it?
That is, I think that's about 2 hours. I think that was sitting for 2 hours. That's not my picture, but I think that had been sitting for a couple hours.
So after 24 hours, should the very top layer be clear then, or close to clear?
Close to clear, yeah. Yeah, the longer you sit, the more it will break apart. So because of my ADD and I'm a big nerd, I wanted to see what are the soils here in Avon Lake like. So, and this is not an endorsement for this website. I'm not getting paid for services or anything. It's just because this is what I've used for almost 10 years. It's called Model My Watershed. It's a lot more kind of user-friendly for people that aren't exactly tech savvy. And I brought it down to the smallest watershed level that I could find here. And there's different tabs that you can look at. I wanted to look at the soils here. So here, you can see about half and half. You got slow infiltration and very slow infiltration, which kind of surprised me. Being here up this close to the lake, I thought you would have sandier soils. Yeah, 45 and almost 47%, and then a few smatterings of some other types of soils. I wanted to compare it to where I live. This is my little local watershed in Columbia Station, Cossack Creek, and look at that, very slow infiltration, almost 3/4 of it. Makes perfect sense. I hate my soils. It's very difficult to work. But yeah, it's just even just those few miles apart, how varying our soils can be. In the case of plants, I can grow stuff that my best friend 3 miles away from me can't grow, and vice versa. She has stuff that I can't grow. So, oh, PVC pipe news. I'm sure you've all subscribed to this. You probably read this article already, but this is very cool. Avon Lake is leading the way in a couple different things. I had a couple other articles about how awesome Avon Lake is, but you guys probably already know this. But I thought this was fascinating. It's, for one, Happy Stormwater Awareness Week. How perfect that we're talking about rain gardens tonight. But in certain areas, Avon Lake being no exception, we had combined sewers here. Let me try to explain it simply. So you have your storm sewer, and then you have almost like a shelf that takes all the stuff from our houses. Think about that for a second. When we get, and they tend to stay separated. The sanitary sewer goes to your water treatment plant. The storm sewers tend to empty out into our local waterways. When we get these heavy rain events, that sewer will fill up. Well, this is an open shelf with your sanitary. So think about when that water fills up, when the storms pass and the water goes back down. That water doesn't magically re-separate. Then this is what causes beach closings, is that contaminated water is getting discharged into our local waterways or in our beaches. And that leads to beach closings. But yay for Avon Lake. They figured out a very simple, practical solution. Instead of having that open shelf, they just ran PVC pipe through it and are directing that sanitary, unsanitary sewage to the water treatment plant where it should go. So yay, Avon Lake, leading the way. They're the first community here in Ohio to do that.
Does that mean there won't be any more basement floodings?
Probably not. One of the issues we have is the rapid development of Lorain County. We are eating up green spaces and putting impervious surfaces. Impervious, your water cannot penetrate, which means more water is being directed into our sewers and other places that we don't want it. So again, this leads us to why we're doing rain gardens. These little things that you and me can all do to help kind of keep that water out of our sewers. Again, kind of reiterating what I just said here. And this is something I did not realize until 2015. And I'm pretty old. You can see the gray hair. That the storm sewers on the roads drain to local waterways. I actually had no idea. I thought if it went in a sewer, it went to the water treatment plant and got cleaned. It's incorrect. So this is why we have to be mindful about everything we do. Really got to focus our lives around what water is doing in our environment. Things like don't wash your car in the driveway. Take it to a car wash because they actually reuse their water. They clean and reuse their water. Their grass clippings, everything can really affect the function of our sewers. Your rain gardens follow the 3 classic principles of stormwater management. Slow it down. You don't want it rushing off your property. Your rain garden will catch it. Spread it out. It will go throughout your garden and soak it in. We want it to infiltrate back into the ground, not go back out into the storm sewers. And it's really a common sense design. If you look at the cross section of it, you have your water coming in off your house, down your downspout. You direct it where it's going to do the most benefit. You have to dig it down. So it's not just, I'm just going to put a bunch of plants in here, which does work, as opposed to turf grass. But you do want to dig a basin, like a bathtub, flat bottom. You want to dig out all that lovely clay that we have and amend it with some compost and topsoil that will allow more infiltration. Put a coating of mulch in there. One of the important aspects, though, is you kind of want you want your emergency outflow. The whole point is to have the water infiltrate. But in the cases of heavy rain events, if your garden does fill up, you will have an emergency outflow. But you do want that lower than your inlet. Again, same cross section, just your 4 basic elements. Your basin, your conveyance, how your water's getting in and moving through, your berm, and your emergency outlet or your overflow. Now your conveyance doesn't have to be underground or whatever. This person, this is the point. No 2 rain gardens are the same. Mine looks vastly different than my neighbor's, which is vastly different from my friends and other instructors of the class. But this is a real kind of a pretty way to get that water moving and slowing it down. You can see the gentle curves, the stones help take the energy out of that moving water and slow it down. I love this example. We talk about this one in the class. Your berm is an important part, to keep that water where it should be. But you can see the challenges that this homeowner has. It's a small yard with a big slope, and you can kind of see, you know, the path of water coming down off the house, down the driveway, and likely out into the road. So they got kind of creative. And again, no two rain gardens are the same. So they did a bit of excavation. They tied into their downspout and directed the water down into the yard. But then they built this beautiful wall. It doesn't have to be the earthen berm. It could be a nice wall like that. And it's functioning perfectly. The water does slowly seep out in those heavier rain events. It does seep out between the blocks, but again, spreading it out and slowing it down, so that water's not all just rushing down their property. So you can get creative. There's not one set blueprint for your rain gardens. You can do what makes sense for you and your yard. Don't forget the outlet. I put this picture in intentionally. You can see it's a cute little garden. You can see the nice basin. You can see the berm. They do have their emergency outlet. My issue with this is because this garden is attached to this house, look how close that is to the neighbor's driveway. Now, again, this is the emergency outflow, so the chances of it, washing out the neighbor is pretty low. But this is one of the things that we talk about, intentional placement of your rain garden components.